Oh, it's now being recorded. Okay. Really cool call by the International Slackline Association. Really cool series by the International Slackline Association. I actually just found out about it when Kat asked me to do it, so I need to go back and listen to all the rest of them because they are all recorded and you can access them afterwards if you miss any of them. My talk specifically is I titled it Quarantine Training. Some advice on how to get moving by a person who self-assesses as a really lazy person. And I'm not actually kidding when I say that. I didn't really grow up doing any sports or any kind of like movement. Like I would go skiing like once a month with my dad during the winter, like 6 or 7 times every winter. And, I did cross country running 1 year in middle school and like played soccer and softball very badly when I was in elementary school, but I kind of hated all of it. I was pretty much inherently bad at it, to the point where I really thought I was just bad at sports until I discovered things like climbing and yoga and slacklining. And so I was never like really encouraged to continue those things. And I didn't really have an inherent desire to like work hard or train or like get better at any of that. And I'm sure you guys have plenty of friends out there too who are sort of like unstoppable. Like they literally like they get up and they go running and then they do yoga and then they can't handle being still. And like I in some ways envy them because I wish I sort of had that like inherent baseline of being really active, but I'm just not that person. Like I grew up an academic. I went to engineering school and my like general average great day is a really slow morning followed by like some sunshine and like maybe some chill slacklining and stuff like that. But like I realized that the things that like really fulfill me at a deeper level besides like at kind of a hedonistic level are just like actually like moving and training and getting better and like seeing improvement in things. And so like I've sort of laid out all these points that I feel like help me that I have never actually really thought about before. And the most common complaint I hear myself say and other people say is like, it's just really hard to get motivated. And motivation doesn't matter, in my opinion, at all. It's really nice to be motivated and it's fun to be motivated. And it's happens sometimes when you least expect it or when you're around really motivating people or in a cool group or around motivating teachers, which is why it's pretty hard to get motivated when you're home alone in quarantine, especially because social media, as opposed to motivating people, oftentimes has the habit of making them feel not good enough. So pretty much like motivation doesn't matter. Like I'm never motivated. I'm hardly ever motivated when I do something. It's developing a habit of just doing something anyways, like almost like going through the motions of just making something happen. Like I'm hardly ever motivated to go on a run or do handstand conditioning unless I've like just watched a cool video. And like it's really not a requirement to be active. When I'm most motivated on doing something is usually after I've done it and I'm feeling like really proud of myself. But instead it's about like deciding that you're going to do something and setting a time for yourself. And then before you have time to like think about it or convince yourself not to do it, it's about like literally just going through the motions to start to make it happen. Like putting like just deciding to like put on your running clothes and put on your running shoes, or like the highliners here will understand this. Like when you're first learning how to highline, half of the battle is just putting on your harness. Like that, and that's committing to actually deciding to go out and do something. Or like rolling out your yoga mat and getting on your yoga mat and just sitting there. If you never actually are motivated to do anything else, then great, you just had a great meditation on your yoga mat. Like more than half of doing something or getting something done is just the act of purely showing up to start to do it. Like that, there's all these kitschy quotes like, success is 99% showing up and 1% talent, or something like that. So first point 100% is motivation doesn't matter. And motivation will come here and there, and it's great when it does, and it feels really good when it does, but just do it anyways. Like go through the motions of putting on your running shoes, putting out your craft supplies, anything else. And then if you just sit there and stare at it, at least don't go do something else. Show up. Point 2. It's go easy on yourself at first. Really like the quote, and I apply this to a lot of different places in my life, is don't let good be or don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I am such a perfectionist, so much so that I want to do everything extremely well. And as opposed to helping me, this is usually actually more of a detriment to me being able to actually start to do something. Because if I don't do it, if I don't have the time or energy to give something all of my effort, then I usually just won't even start. Like if I don't feel like I have the time or energy to do like a 30-minute more motivation or like a 7-mile run, then I'm like, well, what's even the point? But like this for me, and it would result in me doing nothing. Like, for example, I know I can run 6 to 7 miles. I know I can. I've done it when I was less fit than I am now. But if I expect that I'm going to run 6 to 7 miles every day I go running, I'll wear myself out and I'll just never go because I'll just be too exhausted. And so when it comes to anything like this, consistency is key. It's not important to do your best every single day or do the maximum effort that you possibly have. Like, just show up. Doing 2 miles is better than doing zero. Doing 1 mile is better than doing zero. Doing 30 minutes of yoga or even 10 minutes of yoga is better than doing none. Doing 5 minutes of meditation is better than none. If you gain a habit of just starting small and going really easy on yourself and doing something like 5 to 6 days a week, and going all out maybe one of those days or maybe not even any, you'll develop a habit of just doing it, and you'll eventually increase your median and max efforts without even really too much trying, if you develop the habit and just show up to the habitual practice of something without requiring yourself to be the best every single time that you do something. So point 2, go easy on yourself and don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Third point is developing and finding outside training resources that you connect with. Kat mentioned to me that she was interested in like me talking about how I structure my very detailed workouts and what I do with that. And most of the time, honestly, my answer is that I don't structure my own workouts. Because if I have to decide what I'm going to focus on, or if I have to like make a list or something like that, my perfectionist mind, or like if I have to like do my own yoga practice, like I'm a yoga teacher and I can't just like usually flow through my own yoga practice. If I have to decide what I'm going to focus on or what I'm going to do, my like perfectionist mind will spend way more time planning what I should be doing and what the best things to do would be than actually doing anything. So like if I have to decide like what are the best like handstand training workouts, or what's the kind of yoga practice do I want to do today, or you know, what should we do in acro training, like I'll just like totally lose steam and momentum in figuring out what I should be doing, rather and like I'll spend 45 minutes like planning, like literally like making a list. I'm an academic, making a list of like what I should be doing rather than spending those 45 minutes just doing something. So for me, outside resources are key. And especially right now, like during quarantine, there's so many resources online for training programs and yoga classes that are either free or very little money. For instance, like I just did the 12 days of handstand. It's an online free training program put on by the Yoga Slackers, and they add you to a Facebook group, and they send you a document with like things, level 1, level 2, and level 3 you can choose. And like there's a warm up and then like handstand training that changes every 4 days. And they also released like a what to do for the rest of the month while you're waiting for the next 12 days of handstands, which are always the first 12 days of the month. I'm doing like an acro training program. I'm lucky enough personally to live with my acro training partner, Jackie Garcia. She's my best friend. And so we have the ability to train acro right now. But we're doing an online acro training program. And so we've developed a structure that it's 8 sessions. We do every other day, we do a training session, and 2 days in a row that we train, we do a session from that training session. And then the third day, every time, it's like just our fuck around day. We do a little bit of conditioning, and then we kind of just fuck around and do whatever we feel like with our acro practice, things we've seen on Instagram, or just like stuff that we like play with. And eventually, once we're in the flow, once we've already shown up to the practice and we're just like practicing together, that's when the motivation and creativity actually starts to flow, as opposed to beforehand when your mind isn't fully present on what it is that you're doing. There's so many acro classes right now. I just purchased an online customized flexibility training program from Cirque Physio. And there's loads of like training regimens online for running, like honestly anything that you can think of. And if you don't know where to find those resources, the Hive Mind is an incredible resource. And if you just post on Facebook or Instagram about something that you're looking for, you'll either find people who know where to find it, or you'll connect with people who are also looking to find some sort of resource like that, which can like combine you guys together and help you guys motivate together, which will bring me to my next point shortly, about creating an accountability system for yourself. But like I can't really structure my own workouts. I find online resources and I adapt them to work for me. And I try to spend as little time as possible planning what I'm going to be doing, and as much time as possible just doing what I'm going to be doing. Because showing up and doing anything is, as I've said before, is better than doing nothing. Eventually, like once you've already built those skills and like have learned a bunch of handstands, or like have done a bunch of yoga, like motivation does happen, and creative flow does happen all the time, especially if you show up to your mat or to your running. And like I really like this Venn diagram I saw one time. If you can imagine what it looks like with me, it's like 2 circles, and the cross section is what it means to be in the flow state, and like a creative creativity, where a state of creativity where you're moving without any like mental preoccupation of what it is that you're doing, and you're just doing what feels good, and things just come to mind. And like that, the 2 circles where the cross section of flow occurs are between discipline and surrender. So in my mind, the discipline circle involves just the showing up and like developing all those skills via, for me, my best way to do that is outside resources, like the discipline and developing those skills, creating habits to do it anyways, showing up and creating consistency. And then the surrender has to do with like just showing up on your mat, in your running shoes, on the trail, and just being there. And surrender is, for me, a thing that's not voluntary yet. And I don't necessarily know how to make it voluntary, but it happens all the time if you've created the discipline of the practice that you are working towards, which comes honestly like very, very quickly learned from outside resources and really good teachers. So that was point 3, which is find online training resources that you connect with. Point 4, accountability systems to set in place for yourself. Your future lazy self, I promise, will thank you very much for setting up accountability systems for yourself. In real life, accountability systems oftentimes can be easier. Like when you make plans with somebody to go, slackline or running or do acro or go to an acro class or something like that. So it becomes a little bit more difficult for how to navigate that during quarantine when we don't have access to the community that we oftentimes have access to. But it's not impossible. Like I personally am lucky enough to live with my boyfriend and my acro partner, and my boyfriend is my running partner. So, and my handstand training partner. So we set times that we're going to do something, and then, we essentially have to do it at that time because we're accountable to each other. Or if we don't want to, then we need to set another time later, like a concrete time that we are going to do that. And it's the same with acro. Your accountability partner with acro is kind of built in. But that's the magic of things like Zoom, which I think we're on Zoom right now. I'm not sure. I think this is the first time I've used this actually. But you can still create accountability systems, either directly with people online or indirectly from using things like Facebook groups or literally just posting on social media, honestly, for me, is a pretty great accountability tool. It sounds so silly, but if I haven't had something that I've done that I'm proud of within the past few days to post on social media, then I know that I am not living up to the quality or to the consistency of activity that I want myself to be living up to. That's the standard that I personally set for myself. So if you are living with other people, that's a great way to build an accountability system. If you are not, then it is perhaps a little bit more impersonal, but it's still pretty easy. If you join a program like 12 Days of Handstands that has a Facebook group, the accountability that's just within like a Facebook community where people are posting their workouts every day and like asking questions and giving each other advice and just like cheering each other on is a great accountability and a great way to feel a little bit more connected during the time of quarantine. Or like posting your handstand workout or handstand regimen on your Facebook story. Like that's, I'm pretty sure how Kat decided to ask me to speak, because she said that I was the most active person on her feed, which could also mean very well that I'm just the most active person on Instagram, or the most like active on Instagram that's also active. Because plenty of people are active and they're not posting it. Like Zoom workouts are all the rage right now. Like I know plenty of people are doing like online Zoom handstand conditioning and nobody's leading it. These aren't like teachers who are putting it on. They're just all like getting a group together. So you don't have to have something to offer. Like you don't need to be teaching yoga or teaching conditioning or teaching handstand to be getting a group together on Zoom to work out and hold each other accountable. And with those, in my opinion, without promoting exclusivity, honestly, the smaller is the better. Because if there's 10 people, then you can like message somebody if they didn't show up and be like, hey, how are you doing? And if there's like 30 people on a group, you're probably not going to have the motivation to be messaging a bunch of people, asking why they weren't there today. And in that way, helping hold them accountable so that they can help hold you accountable. You can create your own Facebook group, your own Zoom group for workouts, yoga, anything. And believe me, as a teacher who built an acro community, there's nothing that keeps you more accountable than other people relying on the space that you create for their own practice. So accountability systems are an excellent way to stay committed to a practice. There's been so many times when like me and Jackie Garcia is my acro partner, when we had planned a time to train and we're like both so exhausted and tired and like almost like moody and in a bad mood and like would not have gone and done something on our own, but we had planned a time to do it. And we hold accountability in a very high standard. So we have to go. And almost every single, I can't think of a single time when we've regretted still going to that training session, even though we didn't want to originally. So that's point 4, creating accountability systems that you set in place for yourself. And point 5 is my favorite point. The importance of scheduling in shameless rest days. I can't stress enough the importance of total rest days when you are training anything. And on rest days, that means that you literally do nothing except maybe like restorative yoga or light stretching. And because when we exercise, we're literally putting stress on our muscles and our mind. And stress is not actually a dirty word. It's a really productive thing. Stress is constructive if it's immediately followed by your release of that stress. For example, like when you're like strength training and you contract a muscle, you're putting stress on that muscle, which builds it over time and makes that muscle stronger. But if you don't immediately release the muscle, then it will be injured. So stress is a very good thing when it's always followed by relaxation of that stress. Stress becomes destructive after once it's prolonged and if it never subsides. So scheduling in rest days, totally shameless rest days where you do anything you want, no matter how negative the connotation of it is, whether it's like hours of video games or watching Netflix for forever, or like scrolling on Instagram. Those rest days are absolutely important. Recently, I was doing the 12 days of handstands training, and I was having just like a total shit day. And the next 3 days, I couldn't sleep for several nights, and then just accidentally skipped it. And I took 3 days off. And the day that I finally came back to the handstand training was the best day I've had since. I trained the best. I held the longest handstands, and it felt so good. So half the time, the secret to like getting better is not doing something and like letting your body rest and letting all of the work that you've put into that effort sort of just settle into your body without exhausting your body anymore. For my friends who are like exercise addicts, unlike me, hence the, core and training advice from a lazy person, they call it training recovery because they can't seem to stand a day where they are resting and not training. So that's point 5, the importance of scheduling in shameless rest days. And that's all the points that I have. I'll just go over them one more time, and then I will turn on the questions, or you can unmute your mic and ask me any specific questions about like all of the like points that I went through that are more general, or any sort of more specific things. Like I train acro, handstands, running, flexibility, occasionally slacklining, and fingerboarding for climbing as well. So if you have any general questions based off like the philosophy of core and training, or any more specific questions off of any of my personal experience, then please ask. This is a great time to do it. So point 1, getting past a lack of motivation and just doing it anyways. Point 2, go easy on yourself, at least at first, and don't let perfect be the enemy of good or stand in the way of doing something well. Point 3, finding and connecting with outside training resources to help you structure your workouts so you spend more time doing and less time planning. Point 4, building accountability systems for yourself that will help you show up a little bit better, even begrudgingly. And point 5, the importance of scheduling in completely shameless rest days where you do absolutely nothing involved in anything that you're trying to improve or pursue. Yeah. So thank you. Feel free to unmute.
I have a question. I'll
Yeah.
ask something. Guys, feel free to unmute too. And also, just while I have your attention, I'll post, you can there'll be more series, and then you can get reminders for them with this one link, and then like a schedule for when the other ones are in the next thing. But yeah, my question is, so you have like the accountability system with your buddy, but then and you say, okay, we're doing this at this time, for sure. And then if you don't do it, do you ever have like a method of ensuring, like almost like a punishment? Like, okay, if we don't do it, we like have to, I don't know, vacuum the place or something, just like an extra kick?
Not a punishment, no. I don't personally do well with punishments or like requiring myself to do anything like else. I just don't do it. Like, if somebody's not making me do it, then I don't, which is the problem with, external accountability as opposed that we are trained to do in school, as opposed to like training children at a young age to develop internal motivation, even though I hate that word. But no, if we decide we're not going to do something at the time that we do it, then we schedule a time when we are going to do it within the next few days. And that next scheduling time is non-negotiable short of an emergency. So it's not that we punish ourselves. It's that like we're allowed to decide that we don't want to do something or can't do something at a specific time, but we are required to schedule another time that we are going to do that.
Serious time.
Like tomorrow.
Very
Yeah.
serious time.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to know what happens if you break that, so you just never.
Well, we wouldn't know. It's never happened.
Guys, think of the questions you want to ask, but I guess my own one is, do you have like favorite exercises that you think are like a good bang for the buck, and just something that so that all the lazy people don't actually start searching for like the perfect list? Can we get like a quick fix now, just so we know?
Yeah.
This is what you can start with, so there's just no excuse.
So it depends on what you want to do. The quick fix now really is kind of like if you're looking for a quick fix for handstands, I would put you towards 12 days of handstands. But like in general, if you're going to do anything active in this world, you need a strong core. So if you're not going to do anything else, do core exercises, like 8 minutes abs or something. You can look up something like core exercises are all over the internet, all over the world, and you can find them so easily with a Google search. And like truly like 8 minutes of core, like for the full 8 minutes is a long time and it's very painful. But interesting fact, because of the high level of circulation that actually passes by your core muscles, because they're right in front of your digestive system, and most of our blood is attributed to our digestive system after we've been eating, which for most of us happens like 2 or 3 times a day. Your core muscles, unlike any other muscles in your body, actually recover in within 24 hours of working them out. So you've heard people who go to the gym say like leg day, arm day, blah, blah, blah. Like you shouldn't be exercising your legs and arms every day, but you can exercise your core every single day because they recover very quickly. Yep. Do core, quick fix.
I have a question regarding how do I choose what I want to play? I want to play everything, Michelle. By the way, thanks for doing this.
Fuck, I hate that question because I do
right?
too.
So yeah, so my issue. I learned in my 20s I could like I played 2 sports in university.
Is this Mariana?
So there were days. Yeah, it's
Mariana.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay,
just
sorry,
it gets really slow with the camera. Yeah, heck yeah, it's Mariana. Okay, so in my 20s, like I could have like a soccer practice in the morning and then like weights at lunch and then have a basketball practice in the evening, and I could crush everything. And then I learned in my 30s that I could not do that anymore. Que sera, sera. And now there's and as I aged, I didn't have time to do all of this anyway. And now I have time, and all I've been doing is like ISA projects and stuff, which has been beautiful, and playing, and it's great because I'm in a place where the corona mania isn't so bad, and I have the opportunity to surf, and I found a place that I can kind of climb, and I started juggling machetes because that's what you do when you're preparing for the zombie apocalypse. And I want to spin my Dapo Rube Star, and I want to hacky sack, and I want to do like rehab and prehab exercises. And I was doing that for a little while, and then I would like get so tired, and I'd have to take like 2-3 days off. And so the thing with all of these things that I enjoy playing is that like, I want to do them with frequency so that I can improve and see gains. But then physically, I can't. So how do you decide, especially like when you want to put some dedicated effort into having something done with frequency? Because with so many things, especially with flow things, really it's frequency over duration. But then also, how do you put a limited amount of time into something and then still hope to gain from it, right? So you're pretty renaissance when it comes to, flow stuff. So how do you decide, like, okay, now I'm going to really put all my physical strength into, dedicated handstands, or, you're going to go climb, or you're going to do specific training that will help these activities?
Yeah, I also want to do everything. So I completely understand that question. And this also sort of relates back to like the accountability structure. I'm going to show you something that's going to make you guys think that I'm literally crazy. Because people have before, but I make myself charts that like, I don't know if you can read that, but like on here it says like, this is like lifestyle things that I want to do, like eating well, like how many days I drink, like spending time with friends. This is like outdoor things that I like to do, like running, slacklining, blah, blah, blah. These are like all of the activities that I want to do, like strength app, like flexibility, aerial, handstands, acro, cardio, flow activity. And then I have like a spirit section, meditation and journaling, and like mind section, like reading, arts and crafts, and practicing a language because I'm trying to learn Spanish. So this doesn't necessarily answer your question for how to choose. I'll touch on that in a minute. But like, well, it kind of does, because in order to like fit on this chart, I have to like really decide what the things are that I actually want to be focusing on. And then I, at the end of, every day or for the last few days, since sometimes I forget, I'll like fill in whether or not I did that thing. And like there's things like, for the instance, like this says handstands, like the first 12 days of April was pretty much entirely consumed by handstands. Oh, by handstands. And like I didn't do any of my flexibility training. So like maybe for the next few days, I'll decide to focus on flexibility training or something like that, because this shows me with clear, like this shows me the truth, like what I've been focusing on and what I haven't been giving any time to. So it'll help me decide what to do. But like the reality about that is that like I can slackline pretty well now. I'm not good by the standards of what slacklining means nowadays, but like I can get on. I would like to think I can get on almost any highline and have a reasonable chance of standing and taking a few steps. And that's because I spent a massive period of time focusing on almost only that thing. So building the foundation for something is really, really important in being able to get better at it. Getting better at things is usually an exponential curve, in that like you get better pretty slowly. And then as you build a foundation, you get better faster and faster. So when you are developing a skill at first, it's really important to like focus on that thing pretty specifically for a like pretty frequent amount of time. So that honestly requires you to like make a list. And so I focus on like anywhere between 3 and 5 things at a time that I really want to get better at. And things like running and like mountain biking are almost always on that list because they're cardio, and cardio commits themselves, and cardio improves how you are at literally everything. So so does slacklining, by the way, in my opinion. It's like cross training for every sport you're gonna do ever. So like,
yes, it is. Sorry,
yeah.
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah. So like, it kind of sucks, but I really like this saying. It's not actually true that you can't like do everything. You just, or have everything. You just can't do everything or have everything at once. So it's unreasonable for me to expect myself personally to focus well on more than like 3 main activities. So I prioritize all the time. Like right now, my prioritization is not on climbing really, because I can't really climb. You can't really get that good at climbing without climbing. So I'm focusing on other things right now. And like once it's like desert season, I'll probably go focus on climbing a lot, and I'll probably focus a lot less on flexibility and things like that. So like there's a time in a season, and like don't expect yourself to do like to be really good at 10 things and like to switch back and forth between them all the time, because like I just did 12 days of handstands in a row, and that took so much effort that like I couldn't really do a whole lot of other stuff. But I got a lot better at handstands because of the consistency of doing them 12 days in a row. And then I probably won't do them 12 days in a row for the rest of the month. I'll probably focus on some other things. But like I think it's best to choose 3 things at a time in a rotating list that you do with consistency, all those things, and like build up like consistent gain, or the kind of gains that are only that are only possible when you're doing something really consistently. Like things in your brain click when you're doing them a lot, like especially flow activities like slacklining and poi and stuff like that. If you do it every once in a while, it probably won't click as well, because with more time between your last session, it's just not going to work out like that. But it's a lot easier to maintain gains that you've gotten when you did them over a consistent period of time. So if that makes sense, I'll like just review. First of all, choosing a rotating list of 3 things that you do like pretty consistently is based on your environment. And then like if anybody wants like the blueprint for this like silly list, or for this silly like chart that I make for myself, let me know. Honestly, like it really does help me understand what I'm doing and what I want to be spending more time on. And then I'll like review my.
Yeah,
I'll, like,
Michelle, please post that chart.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll 100%
Yeah, agreed.
post
I'd
this
love to see
chart.
that.
Yeah.
Or where we
and,
find
like,
a template like that.
Yeah, no, I literally just got graph paper and drew it out. I've never seen anything like this before. So I'll write out, I'll draw out a new template, and I'll put mine on there as well, so you can see like the kind of things that I put on my list. And like this also helps me know how often I'm drinking, and like when I'm using like, when I'm smoking too much, or like if I spent time outside, or if I spend money or make money. Like it doesn't have to just be activity. You can use it for whatever you want. Yeah. Mariana, does that answer your question at all? Or like my opinion on it?
It does.
Least?
Thank you. Well, yeah. I mean, prioritize, but yeah, I've been really trying to find a way to do everything, like to do all of the things that I want to do, especially while I'm here, so I can see gains. But I've been doing them in such little fragmented sessions as well. But I know you can only hold so many skills. But then it's like with the machete juggling, I was going really hard for like days and days and days with like surf sessions and other stuff in between. And then I took like 3 days off because my body was really mad at me. And then now my machete juggling kind of sucks. And I'm totally afraid to knife myself.
First of all, 3 days off is like not a bad thing, by the way. Like, don't ever like get down on yourself for taking 3 days off. But also, like, I mean, I think most people who are listening to this like have some connection with slacklining, and everyone here, like, who has ever learned how to slackline, unless you started when you were like 8, has experienced that like you feel so fucking good on one day, and then the next day or like a week later you get on the same slackline or highline, and you're like, what the actual fuck? Like, I can't do this at all. And like the important thing to realize is that even if like the line hasn't changed, like your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual state has changed in that time. And it could be in ways that are imperceptible to you. And like it's sort of like when you are practicing a skill, you are forging new neuron pathways in your brain and your entire nervous system. And it's kind of like when you like walk off trail, and eventually like enough people walk off trail that they create a social trail or a climber trail that's now a pretty obvious trail, and it's more pronounced. And like if you only walk on the trail every once in a while, it's going to like overgrow, and like those like mental, and the energy is literally energy that is creating that entire neural pathway is energy. And like that energy will be allocated to where it feels like it's needed, which is why, in my opinion, consistency for a long time at a few select things is the most important thing. And then once you sort of build that trail, like you can go and start to build other trails and then visit that trail a little bit less often.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle. That's great. And that bullet journal is fantastic. I'm totally going to use that.
Yeah, it's great. I don't like any of the stupid passion planners and shit like that exist in the world, because I don't like the questions that they ask me, and it's just annoying. So I just got a sketchbook, and then I have like a chart for every month. And then, I counted how many pages were in here, and I separated them out between like, divided them by 12 basically. And so then there's journal pages in between each chart too.
Dude, I'm starting to see when you said, I never try to write things down, for every workout, because then the workout would never happen. You have a very solid approach. It's very sophisticated. Imagine if you were planning every workout. You'd be like, graph paper everywhere.
No, it would not work for me. No. I also have this app called Seconds app. That you can program in your own workouts in there. too. So like if you like want to spend one time like writing out your core energy workout and then programming it into your second step. The second step is like $5, but it's worth it in my opinion. And it'll like time you. You can like set custom times, and then like you can anytime you want to go to your 8-minute core workout, instead of like finding your list of what you're doing, you're forgetting, you just hit the play button and your mind goes blank. You don't have to like stress or worry about what you're doing, and then you just do it. Any other questions?
I'll just put the link for the seconds app there.
Yeah, seconds app is great. Please do. I'll also you put out the link. Yeah, you'll put out the link, and then I'll post on my Instagram a follow up on this too, with a link to the chart and a link to the seconds app as well. Does anybody have any questions specifically about like any specific external resources I use for training, or like anything else?
All right.
Sweet.
I think everyone's like digesting.
Yeah.
Dude.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
This has been
guys.
cool.
Feel free to message me anytime. I have nothing but time now.